What I'm about to share with you in this video is, I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be pretty shocking. It's very telling information that very clearly shows how deep censorship and demonetization goes when it comes to independent media that threatens mainstream narratives. Now, it's very transparent what we're about to show you. We're going to show you some of our financial figures. We're going to show you a number of things around different various platforms and the traffic that we've had and what has changed. And then we're going to kind of get into exactly sort of what systematically has happened. And the reason why we're doing this is, one, we've recently found out from listening to a lot of people in our audience and so forth, is that a lot of people that are not, say, privy to independent media don't believe there is any form of censorship going on. They think that things are just removed or that they're deleted if they're completely fake news, and that's kind of it. No big tech company would actually spend their time specifically targeting certain individuals and actually shutting them down or demonetizing them or reducing their traffic. What I'm going to show you is so blatantly obvious that if you send this to somebody and they still don't believe you, then there's no helping them to understand the situation. Let's get into this right away. This first bit here is looking at, and it kind of explains the beginning of the story. We started the company in 2009, right? I started here from around 2014 in this particular graph for the reason that it's like, you're building up your traffic, you're building up your company. We didn't really even start to focus on building things more heavily until around 2012. So you can see we started to build our traffic, right, along this line. Coming into 2014, into 2015, we really found our stride. Really, we're using Facebook to a big advantage. That stayed consistent all the way through roughly to 2016. What you're seeing here is page views, the amount of page views we get in general, which was in the 30, somewhere in the 30 million per month range or so, right? And then you can see in here in 2016, as there became a lot of controversy around the 2016 presidential election, you started to see a decline. And we started to talk about this decline here as, oh, I wonder what's going on. Maybe it's just us. Maybe we're not finding the right content. Maybe we're not hitting the right things. And what you see is, you have a couple of little increases here and there. This is, the kind of the Hillary Clinton WikiLeaks drops that really started to get very exciting for people during that 2016 election. But as you can see, there's a spot right before, so you see the decline, right? And this would have a lot to do with Facebook. Facebook deciding to now change its algorithms and censor information. But right here, right before 2017, what looks like about November of 2016, you see a massive decline. And so you go, well, what is that about, right? And when I say a massive decline, it's kind of the biggest dip. And nothing really recovers all that much after that from a consistency point of view. And I'm going to explain to you what that is. So there was a list. You may remember this. This list that came out, false, misleading, clickbaity, satirical news sources. It was written by it was put together by a university professor at the University of Massachusetts. And she decides to list a whole bunch of different websites as various categories, whether it's fake news, whether it's conspiracy theory, whatever it might be. This was pretty big news. In this, we got listed as junk science, as you can see here, junk science, right? So what that means is essentially, this website is going to promote ideas that don't come from the mainstream point of view, but from the mainstream point of view, they look at it as, well, this must be junk science because it's against what we believe in our religion, right? Which is essentially what a lot of mainstream science is today. It's a dogma, it's a religion. And I know that offends some people sometimes, but I challenge you, because we've done this as journalists for, 11 years. Really look again at the emerging science that's coming out, whether it's about vaccines, genetically modified foods, anything. Look at it and honestly ask yourself the question, does the science that's available line up with your belief? Or is there emerging science that's asking you to question, meaning that's asking you to be a scientist? It's asking you to actually go, hold on a second, what is science about? It's about ever-evolving theories, right? It's about, hey, if new information challenges the old, we have to look at that. That does not happen today in mainstream science, right? Which is why new science and people who publish it are listed as junk scientists, right? So we got listed as that. So let's go back to the graph now. So this was when, and this is what's funny is this list was published 7 days after the results of the 2016 election. So essentially something happened, Trump won, right, that a lot of powerful people were not happy with. And that was that, right? The left-leaning Facebook, the left-leaning Google, right? All of whom have been it's been proven that they were manipulating various search algorithms, results and so forth that people would find to favor Hillary Clinton throughout the election. This is, tons of information about this on the internet. You can evidently see it. There's been whistleblowers who have come out and talked about it. You got to ask yourself the question, if these big tech companies didn't get the results in the election that they wanted, they needed somebody to blame. They needed to look somewhere as to what happened. And so independent media got blamed for it. Fake news and blaming independent media became a huge thing. It was all over the internet. You can search all this stuff. You probably remember just from your experience. Suddenly everybody's talking about fake news. These internet sources that are telling these stories, they are the problem. They are the fake news. But are they really? Some of them, absolutely. I've seen it enough in my own experience. We've seen it enough here as Collective Evolution. There are fake news websites out there, 100%. But was fake news the reason why people were, let's just say, voting for Trump instead of Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election? Absolutely not. It was because people actually looked at the WikiLeaks documents. They looked at the amount of corruption that was, around Hillary Clinton, and they didn't like it. So they chose to go another direction. Is that the fault of independent media? Well, I don't know. Mainstream media wasn't telling you that part of the story. Why? You just have to ask yourself these questions, right? So you continue to see this decline ever since then, when Facebook promised after the election and all these fake news websites lists, right, came out. They promised to vow to take care of fake news. Nobody ever really defined what fake news was, what it was about, and why certain non-fake websites like ours were suddenly thrown in the bucket of your fake news, and we're going to now limit all of your traffic. So you can see from here, as this graph moves forward, we never really recover our traffic. And in fact, it just keeps going down and down and down and down and down. These little spikes you see here and there is like a majorly viral story that, you happen to put out, it hits, and it goes unstoppably viral, right? But these are very rare. These don't really happen very often, and the general traffic has declined. That's what happened with web traffic. It was literally taking a website that had built itself up to 30 million page views a month, which is more or just the same as a lot of mainstream media websites that are insanely popular, who buy about 50% of their traffic. So we're organically doing this, which means people love our content significantly more than they love what's coming out of the mainstream. But that's the problem. So they shut us down there. So that's how traffic declines happened, right? That was a lot of the push. You're seeing the graph as to how that took place. Now, can you prove that Facebook was doing that? Well, here's the reality of the situation. They're not going to come out and say it, right? There's been whistleblowers out of Google who, spoke about how Google went on an all-out attack against, various types of websites that covered natural health and so forth, which we covered a lot, and completely removed them from their algorithm in a lot of cases, right? We are experienced that. You're going to see that in a second. But the point is these companies were obviously getting together thinking, how can we control this situation, right? How can we stop these websites that have built businesses that are very robust, that are providing people what they want, and suddenly they just start shutting everything down like you see in that graph. So let's move on to Google's demonetization strategy through AdSense. So we were using AdSense, which is an advertising platform that allows us to put ads on our website that if people decide to click or whatever, that's how it works, then we make some of that revenue, Google makes some of that revenue, and the company that's looking to advertise gets an audience, right? And typically what happens is, over the course of time, there's always going to be, every given month, some clicks that happen on ads that Google considers invalid. Invalid traffic, as defined by Google, is essentially if you might have a bot that clicks an ad. If a publisher starts clicking their own ads, they're going to know that through IP addresses, so they're going to know that that's not real. If a click farm sends a whole bunch of clicks, they're going to find out through their own algorithms that this is invalid traffic, right? So over the course of 7 years leading up to from 2012 to 2019, we developed, just give you a quick look, like I ran a report here from AdSense, you can see it. I gathered all of our data. Okay, I'm kind of scrolling through this quickly just because I'm trying to move on to the actual things, but you can see I gathered all of this data from The very beginning, when we were making virtually nothing down here because we were just starting out, all the way up to when we were making larger numbers, all the way up until today, where I'm going to tell you the story of what happened. So that's a quick look at that. So from that time, what happened was this. We, for 7 years, had very predictable revenue because Google was doing what they should have been doing, which is paying us for the traffic we were sending to their advertisers. Like clockwork, we expected that we would experience invalid traffic from anywhere between 1% and 9%. Our average over those 7 years was 3%, meaning roughly about 3% of the clicks, or a couple $100, every single month, was considered invalid. And you're like, okay, no problem. So when you make, $40,000, $50,000 in that month, you might lose $700, $600, whatever it might be. Then all of a sudden, as we kind of got up to the end of 2017, I threw in a couple numbers here. You can see September 2019, 1% of our traffic was invalid, as according to Google. All of these numbers are according to Google's reporting. October, 1%, November, 5%, then December, 9%, right? And this is classic. This is kind of what you see throughout the course of 7 years. Suddenly in January 2020, Google says 41%. Then in February, 48%. In March, 62%. In April, 72%. In May, 72%. June, 82%. In July, 81%. And so what this was saying was that, let's say we were going to make, and I'll show you a quick example right here. This is last month in July. We were supposed to make $12,993. Google took away $10,608. So they're taking away 82% of the revenue that we're supposed to make all of a sudden, right? They don't notify us of this. We actually didn't find out because we'd been doing this for 7 years. So I didn't even notice. I was talking with accounting here at our company and I was like, yeah, no, we made like 7-8 grand last year, even through all the demonetization. We made last month, we made like 7 or 8 grand on ads. And it was like, no, that's not what came in the account. I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh, no, like a fraction of that came in the account. So I started to look by the time I think we hit around March, I started to look and I'm like, oh wow, January and February, Google took away like almost 50% of our revenue. This doesn't make any sense. And then I noticed in March, they did it again. And that's when we started to realize, okay, there's a problem here. So we started to look into it. We started to search. We couldn't figure out why they were doing this. There's no answer. There's no clarity as to why all of a sudden, at the time, they were like a massive, like 40% increase over how much they're suddenly taking away our revenue. And then as April, May, and June continues on, I'm like, wow, they're increasing it. And at this time, I'm speaking with our IT team and I'm saying, my honest perspective on this, the intuition that's coming up about what's happening here, especially since none of the other advertisers that we work with are doing this, is that Google is just trying to push out publishers that it does not want to work with. So they have some algorithm, they have something that's specifically targeted towards certain websites that states, we want to push you out, so we're going to make your life a living hell working with us. And that's what they continued to do as our invalid traffic just kept increasing and increasing and increasing to the point where eventually they were saying 80% of your traffic is invalid with no explanation as to why. So how did a 7-year cycle suddenly become, okay, all of a sudden it has changed? Well, let's look at what else they did before we'll come back to this slide. In May of 2020, May 1st to be exact, they completely shut off our search ranking, I guess you could say, on Google. So if someone goes to Google and they decide to search something, whatever topic, collective evolution would no longer show up. And we had seen this for years prior to this, where we could search exact titles of our articles and it would not show up in Google. It was like almost impossible to find our own stuff. We watched over the course of time as our Google search traffic, so traffic that comes to our website from people searching on Google, it was declining. But May 1st, 2020, they literally shut it off in a straight line down. When I say shut it off, I don't mean completely, but something happened where it was literally like from one day to the next, bang, we are not in their search anymore. And then that just kind of continued on, and it continues to sort of go down even to this day. The point is, you see the reason why I showed you this part of the graph is showing you the straight line hockey stick down that happened, and it has never recovered since that moment. So why, again, what could have been targeted about our domain, about our website that suddenly says we're shutting it all off? You go back to this for a second and you say, they're pushing publishers they don't want to work with out because it's a bigger story if they just shut off. If we have a massive reach and a massive audience and Google decides we're just going to shut your account off, much like when they delete people from YouTube and so forth, it turns them into stars, right? So by holding people in place and making their lives a living hell, but not making a big enough story for them to go to their audience and say, hey, look what they did by just full on deleting us, then it makes it like even bigger censorship, because we're allowing you to exist, but you're shadow banned. So you don't even really know, and nobody really knows that, you don't exist anymore, but you kind of do, but you kind of don't. It's a very, very difficult place to be in, because people are like, well, I still see that you're here, but they don't understand, the average audience doesn't understand the degree to which literally Google, I say this, but literally they're stealing our revenue. They're stealing our money. I don't know, it's obviously an extreme way to put it, but that's what's happening here. And so in August, we decided to switch. We're going to let's just see what happens. Maybe other advertisers are going to find something wrong with our site. It has never happened. We've worked with Media.net, Tribal Fusion, and a few others here and there. Never in the history of any of the times we use them have they ever done anything like this over the course of the last 6 months. It is not happening. It doesn't happen with the current advertiser we're working with. So there's something going on with Google, right? And as we saw with the search engine traffic here, we can see that they're doing something. And YouTube, who's owned by Google, we woke up January 2019, and what did we see? Oh, look at this. YouTube has completely shut off our YouTube traffic. So we had never spent a ton of time on YouTube. However, we were getting consistent views. When we put out videos, people would see them. We were building up over the course of 2018 our viewership, where we would get a good amount of traffic on every single video, between 10,000 and 50,000 views in a lot of cases. Some would get into the hundreds of thousands, right? And we were building this up, and you could see we were growing our subscriber base very, very quickly, right? And then because we decided to put a lot of energy into YouTube suddenly. And then all of a sudden, as we were leading up to the end of the year, I remember December was becoming very good. We were growing it, views were becoming solid, very consistent, and then things just shut down as of January 1st. Not only that, we got a message from them at the very, very end of December that said, you're demonetized. We're not allowing you to run ads on your platform anymore. And you can see over the course of this, they literally just shut off our traffic, regardless of how many videos we put out, regardless of how much stuff, how good the video content was, how good the watch time was. It did not matter. Our views did not go up because we were erased from the algorithm like so many other people were on YouTube. So you can see from the graphs that there's these very clear, hey, we're shutting off what we're doing for you, whether it's with the search, whether it's with views on YouTube, or whether it's with pushing you out via taking away the money that you expect to be getting, right? So it's like for 7 years, Google was paying us fairly, just as it should have been. And then all of a sudden in January of 2020, they decide we're going to shut everything off. This is what happens. You're watching how companies have literally taken our business that we took many, many years to grow, where we were making well over $1 million a year in revenue, being able to pay a team of anywhere between 10 and 14 people over the course of that time, having been able to reach a lot of people, having been able to do what we need to do to help make an impact in the world, which is what we started this for and what we were trying to do, and then all of a sudden just systematically erasing everything we're doing. This is what it looks like. This is what happens. This is the actual data. By far, to me, the most shocking thing is this slide right here, which is the Google demonetization strategy, where they literally just start out of nowhere taking away revenue, pushing you out of their platform, and just not monetizing, just not allowing you to be monetized properly. And so, yeah, like I say, we've switched. It's going fairly good with a new advertiser so far. We'll see what continues to happen, but when you combine the totality of what has happened, and we've gone from having, like I said, 12, 13 employees, creating content, having reach, down to after they kill your reach and nobody can see your content, we now have 3, 4 people on the team right now just, creating the content that we're doing, and that's it. That's the reality of how fast these things can be shut down. And the reality of the situation is, When people say, and the reason why, again, we do this, is when people say, when they believe what they believe about mainstream media, when they believe the stories or the manipulation that goes on for public perception, and they hear you say something, and they go, well, I never heard of that. Or, well, that sounds like it could be fake news. The reason why people say, ooh, I never heard of that story, or ooh, I don't know about this, is because they've been shutting down the ability for those stories, which are true, they've been shutting them down from getting into anybody's awareness. And this is like, I go through this all the time with people who don't watch independent media. They're like, well, the only perception I have right now, and we don't support, any side of the political spectrum, but the only perception that people have right now in general is I hate Trump. And the reason why they do is because mainstream media has been saying that for 4 years, right? Now, is there truth within some of that? Maybe a few of the stories here and there. But a lot of the stories people have been lied to and manipulated about. And all we try and do as independent media is say, hey, there's more to the story. Here's what it is. You don't have to like or dislike him. What we're saying is your perception is not based on reality. It's based on a fake idea of reality. Independent media is trying to show you what reality is, so your perception, your awareness of what's going on in the world is accurate. Then you can make decisions about your life, which affects your individual life, community, the country, and so forth, based on reality, not based on an illusion. And that's why independent media is being shut out, is they want people's awareness to be based on what mainstream media puts out, which is virtually a complete lie. It's a complete illusion. So when people say the things that they say, when they have the perceptions that they have, it is not based on reality. And so this is it. I don't know how else to put it. I don't know how else it could be made clear to people other than when you're seeing the mass deletions of documentaries, the mass deletions of YouTube accounts. These things all happen. But there's a group of people too that produce high quality content that are just literally what you call retired in place, which means they don't remove you fully from the platform, but they essentially shadow ban you to the point where nobody knows you exist anymore. Then they proceed to take all of your revenue away slowly but surely. And like I said, this is why we created CTV, because again, people ask us the question, okay, I see this stuff. I've noticed you're going through all this censorship. How can I help you? What can we do, right? So we created CTV, our own platform that we have control over. And yes, we're trying to help the world, but guess what? We have bills to pay. So we have to charge for our own platform, because all of the means by which we could provide free content to people and then have these big tech companies pay us like they pay everybody else, they've taken all of that away from us. So for us to have these cameras, build these sets, do this work, spend our time, hours and hours and hours doing this stuff, we have to make money now in a different way, right? Because that's the world we live in at the moment. So we create CTV. It's our own on-demand streaming platform that, allows people to, watch a lot of our content. We have courses in there. We have guides. It focuses on personal transformation as well as being informed about what's going on in the world. We bring those two things together because that's our bread and butter. We have to personally transform ourselves to make a change on this planet. We also need to know what's really going on in our reality, so our perception is based on reality and not an illusion. So that's what this platform helps people do. If you want to check this out, if you want to support the work that we do, see us continue to create content, visit ctv.one. You can start a free trial, become a member, and support media you care about, if you do care about it. Now, of course, if you can't, support us financially for whatever particular reason, that's totally okay. Share our content. Spread this video to other people, because this video shows many, many people the reality of what is happening to independent media in very clear, plain data. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.